For example, let's say another speaker comes up. We've heard this a lot. They say there is a great potential inside you. You should use this potential. You should awaken your potential. Come on, let's jump, let's leap, let's hop. Okay, these things give you good energy, but this doesn't reach everyone. If we were to explain this again within a story, if we were to tell it without getting stuck on consciousness, how would we explain it? Now, what does it mean to get stuck on consciousness? I'm using this for the second time because I'm going to explain it. Now, we develop a thought pattern since the day we were born about whether something can or cannot be done. We call these prejudices. These are things that exist in all of us. When you tell us something outside of this prejudice, our consciousness immediately steps in and says, you say this, but what about that? You say this, but what about this? You say this, but what about that? And the consciousness enters into an argument. This is something that happens very often, and it's also unpleasant. That's why in one-on-one sessions like this, people often end up arguing after a while. But you say this, yet this happens. But you say that, and then this happens. However, when you present this information within a story, since the consciousness feels like it's listening to a story, it doesn't approach the message with a but, and the story reaches the subconscious directly. I like to explain this with the following example. Let's imagine a palace. Let the door of this palace be the conscious mind, and the inside of the palace be our subconscious. You want to get a piece of information inside. Let's say this is new information. The person at the door doesn't want the newcomer. He only accepts things he knows and recognizes. But when you tell a story, since it is not perceived as new information, but as a story, it is easily let inside, and you can easily convey it to the other person. For example, psychiatrist Milton Erickson, who is one of the top experts in this field, has always healed his patients through stories. He always told stories and became a legend, because at some point he realized this. He said, well, when I give advice to my patients, my clients, I always get stuck at their conscious minds. But when I tell a story, those stories go directly to the subconscious. This is a very effective method. Now, what did we say? We said, awaken your potential, you have potential. We say things like, you are this, you are that, you are a lion, you are a tiger. Okay? These motivate us, they energize us in the moment. But to reach the subconscious, we need to get to a more emotional point. For example, here I am telling a story. Depending on the audience I'm addressing, I have many, many different stories. I have a repertoire of stories. For example, let me tell you this. Someone who approaches this professionally, and I use this as a metaphor, tries to carry more techniques in their bag. They say, let me know this technique, let me know that technique, let me know the other technique as well. But what I'm telling you is, there should be more stories. There should be more stories than techniques. First, fill yourself with stories. If you have a story to tell about every topic, you'll naturally adapt it anyway. And then when you learn the techniques, you'll see, oh, here they've applied meaning change from logotherapy. Oh, here they've used something like reframing. Or here they've applied something else. Stories already do this naturally. That's why for thousands of years, stories have been passed down from person to person by word of mouth. It's not the techniques, but the stories that have been passed on. Don't forget this point either. So, for example, when I'm giving a talk, let's say I'm going to talk about awakening potential. I start with this story. In one of London's most famous museums, the world's most expensive diamond was on display, and a thief had been making plans for a very long time to steal this diamond. He made all his plans, what he would do, how he would prepare, how he would execute his plan, how he would get past security, and so on. He actually managed to steal the diamond, but on his way out, he triggered a security alarm he hadn't accounted for. The alarms went off, the security guards started chasing him, and the police were after him as well. The man was running away with the diamond in his hand. He turned the corner of the street. There was a homeless man, a beggar, lying on the ground. He thought, let me put this diamond in his pocket. After all, no one would check his pocket. Thinking he could come back and get it tomorrow, he put it in the man's pocket. While running away on another street, a police officer told him to stop. He didn't stop. Then he was shot and died there. The next day, the beggar woke up with one of the world's most expensive diamonds in his pocket. But since he had found that jacket in the trash, it never occurred to him to check the pocket. For days, for months, he continued begging with the world's most expensive diamond in his pocket. And one day, he died in poverty with the world's most expensive diamond in his pocket. Now, this metaphorical story is actually our story. We are all born with many diamonds inside us, with the diamonds bestowed upon us by the Creator. But it never occurs to us to look in our pocket. We are not even aware that they are there. We constantly live like beggars with diamonds in our pockets, weighed down by feelings of worthlessness, thinking, what could ever come of me? Or because society makes us feel this way. But only when we become aware of those diamonds do the treasures within us begin to emerge. When I was 15, I started to become aware of the existence of those diamonds. And actually, Sufism was what introduced me to this. It was Sufism that reminded me of the diamonds within me. And in our family, there are no musicians, no writers, no one interested in these subjects, nor are there any in our extended family. But somehow, each of us has different diamonds within ourselves. Inside me, there was a talent for writing, for speaking, and for music, and by becoming aware of it, these abilities emerged. That's why today, please also recognize the diamonds in your own pockets. Everything starts with awareness first, and then reveal them. Now look, what did I do while telling this story? By the way, every time I tell this story, I'm also telling it to myself. Because our potential is so great, so vast, that even if we use some of it, there is still a large part we haven't tapped into. And I know that you listening to me right now, you are also aware of your potential, and you are also aware that you haven't used all of it. You are also aware that you have postponed many things. But now it's time to recognize these diamonds. I mean, for you, here, we're learning a technique, but please, let's also apply these things to ourselves. So what did I do here? By telling the story, I made everyone question themselves. I made everyone take a look at themselves and say, yes, this could be true. And I explained this within a story, within the structure of the story, by adding a piece of myself as well. But when you just come out and say, you have potential inside you, use this potential, it's dry. It's something that doesn't reach us. But with the story, it reaches our hearts, our souls. That's why I'm saying it again. Story, story. You need to know how to explain this topic very well, extremely well.